Did you see that? It seems like photographers right now are currently obsessing over dreamy looking photographs, aka the dreamy aesthetic. I mean, if you take a quick look at Instagram, images that have sort of that dreamy kind of feel tend to get way more engagement and is also just loved by the masses. And so today, I wanted to share how I achieve dreamy looking photographs, but not with any editing, but rather with 35mm film. In my opinion, there's nothing like film that's going to deliver the soft highlights, pastel tones, and grain that makes images feel like a faint memory. In fact, there are 3 film stocks that I feel like give off the dreamy aesthetic naturally just because of their characteristics. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to share those 3 film stocks with you, as well as how I shoot them to get the most dreamy looking images on film. Let's start off with my favorite, Portra 400. Portra 400 is a 400 ISO color film from Kodak's professional line, and it's well known for its fairly neutral color palette, nicely saturated colors, warmer tones, and is often the choice for portraits as most skin tones typically respond well on this film stock. But my philosophy on Portra is slightly different than most people, and that is you need to feed it light. No, I mean, like, seriously, don't be afraid. You see, one of Portra's strengths is that it has a very good exposure latitude, especially when you lean on overexposing. When you overexpose Portra 400 by 1 to 2 stops, you start to see these dreamy characteristics magically appear. Your nicely saturated colors get soft and pastel-like. Your highlights, even when blown out, still retain a ton of detail. And when you shoot this film during golden hour, you might just end up in a dream. But Portra is still versatile enough to be shot in darker settings, for example, like in overcast or maybe even rainy weather, as well as even night scenes. The key to get dreamy photographs with Portra is to nail exposures every time, and if you're shooting in direct sunlight, I would lean on overexposing. But this raises the question, will every single image come out dreamy? The short answer to that is no, not every frame. But the images that have the dreamy aesthetic will always possess one of the following elements: direct sunlight, overexposure, a shallow depth of field, and lower contrast. If you can somehow include these following elements, you will get dreamy looking images with Portra. Now, I didn't really want to talk about this in the beginning because I felt like it might be a little bit of a cheat code. If you have dreams of being a better photographer online, the best way to do that is to create your own professional website with today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is your all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. With Squarespace's cutting-edge design and AI blueprint tools, you can tailor the perfect website that meets your aesthetic, or you can just choose an award-winning template to get your website up and running within minutes. You can also set up an e-commerce shop to sell prints, zines, or maybe some of your dreamy images. Lastly, if you are a portrait photographer, Squarespace features appointment scheduling, which allows your clients to see what time slots you have available and book you directly all in one place. I've been using Squarespace now for over 6 years, and they have been my go-to for hosting my website. So if you want to create your dream website today, head over to squarespace.com/KingJapes and enter promo code KingJapes at checkout, and you guys are going to get 10% off of your first purchase of a domain or a website. Huge thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this portion of the video. So we covered warmer environments for dreamy film photographs, but what about nighttime dreamy? Well, let me introduce you to my good old friend, Cinestill 800T, or should I say, Cinestill 640. Cinestill 800T derives from a motion picture film, which is known to have cinematic characteristics like halation, cyan tones, and has been a staple for photographing nighttime scenes with neon lights. I actually rate Cinestill at 640 ISO, which, if you've been following along, is actually underexposing the film. But unlike Portra, when slightly underexposed and shot at 640, the colors tend to pop way harder and you get these insane looking images without really having to do much work. Now, the key to getting dreamy photographs with this film stock is to choose the right locations. Personally, I look for neon signs. If I'm shooting portraits, I like to have random ambient light in the background to add a pop of color, gas stations, storefronts, etc. Anything that really looks like it could be a scene from a movie. But Cinestill can be a tricky film to shoot. If you accidentally underexpose Cinestill past 2 stops, you could end up with dark, muddy, and grainy days. Well, it's a good thing we got bad flashes. The last dreamy looking 35mm film is one that many of you probably weren't expecting. This film stock also is considered to be a budget film and can be found for around $12 a roll. The film in question, Kodak Gold 200. Now this is a very quirky film as your results will really depend on two factors, light temperature as well as exposure. When you photograph with Kodak Gold in cooler settings, you get sort of this lo-fi, somewhat lower contrast, lower saturation feel. On the other hand, if you photograph with gold during bright, warm scenes, well, you're gonna get gold. This is where the film stock shines. Like, no, literally, look, it's literally glowing, it's gold. Just take a look at those amazing warm tones. Look at the grain, as well as look at the highlights here. The latitude is still pretty good. Although I don't really overexpose Kodak Gold much, I actually recommend shooting it at box speed, 200 ISO. Unfortunately, Kodak Gold doesn't have the same characteristics as Portra, where if you overexpose the film, the colors don't really get more pastel. I feel like if anything, they become a little bit more contrasty, maybe a little bit more saturated, and as a result, I just like to shoot it at box speed. And if you were thinking about shooting this film at night, you might want to think otherwise. 200 ISO in most situations is a little bit too slow to accommodate a darker night scene. But here's a pro tip. If you use a flash and you have direct flash, the images that you get with Kodak Gold look like backstage photos to your favorite rapper. But there you have it. Those are my go-to dreamy 35mm film stocks. Let me know in the comments down below which film stocks you would recommend for the Dreamy Aesthetic. And lastly, please subscribe. I can barely afford to keep my lights on. This has been King James. Till next time, Minolta Gang.